Hey there, everybody. It is, Wednesday now, and it's your boy Choppadong. We're coming at you with another two-type player pool for June 8th. Main slate, Fanduel and Draftkings. We'll try and get both sites in, but to be honest with you, I want to talk to you a little bit about something else as well, and it's the smaller slates. Have you ever played smaller slates? Generally speaking, the contest selection drops way, way off, especially these days, worse than it was 3 years ago, but you generally end up with some recreational players that are either chasing bad money off of the main slate that's already tanked on them or something. You can find some softer competition. If you're the type of player that likes to play the same types of competitions all the time, you know, your 100-man leagues, your 3-man leagues, your head-to-heads, stuff like that, you can usually find those on any sized slate that you want. If you're looking for the great big top-heavy GPPs or those big mass multi-entry competitions, you're not going to find those very often on the smaller slates unless you go way up in your buy-in or your entry fee. But you can usually find those others on those smaller slates that find the other contests that you like. And the point is, it's a way to diversify your bankroll. Let's say you're putting $100 into play every night. You could put 30 in play on 3 different slates, put the same $100 in play, and have a little bit more balance. Where one slate might really rinse you, the other slate might pay it all back. And you just never really know. It goes to the boom or bust nature of these cash games and this two-type player pool that we're talking about. So when you come down to things like, well, I could have put all 100 on that slate and done really, really good with it. That's true. But again, you're putting all of those 100 eggs in one basket. That's a boom or bust lifestyle. If you can live with it, fine, do it. But if you're the type of person that likes to diversify, you want to spread out across multiple slates, or multiple sports, or multiple sites. Brings up point B, which is, have you tried Super Draft, Prize Picks, Underdog Fantasy, Monkey Knife Fight? Any of those other sites that are out there, those smaller niche sites, tend to bring in fewer sharks because they don't just offer the volume that the sharks are looking for to really capitalize on all the fish in the fish pond. That gives you an opportunity. Gives you an opportunity to not only diversify your bankroll a little bit more and play different formats and different sites, but it allows you to get into softer competition and start picking on lower hanging fruit. As luck would have it, we have content for all that stuff at dfsarmy.com. I'm a coach and contributor. You've probably heard me talk about being the small ball extraordinaire, the notorious small guy. I'm a chalk eater by nature. I like to play close to the vest, and I like to teach you how to sensibly invest your money as well. It's what I do for dfsarmy.com. If you like that type of mentality or you want that type of coaching, you need to come inside and look me up. Use the coupon code DFSARMY for a 10% off discount and come hit me up. We'll talk back and forth. We might even become friends. Until then, let's talk about the two-type player pool, though, and let's see where that goes. On even some of those smaller slates, I can't show those without ownerships, but I do have them for the main slate right now. So when I click that number there and bring these guys all to the top, we see we have a fairly big slate again. And you see me just setting up like I normally do. 5 lineups, 2 uniques, optimal mode, yada, yada, yada. No stacking, no nothing. Uncheck everybody and start going position by position. But while we're, look at the spread there. Look at that. That's different in the past couple of days. No longer do we have a 36% owned guy and then it drops off to 11%. Showing us that we've got a very, very solid cash game favorite pitcher. This one shows a little bit of balance. You can use some Bieber or Eovaldi, but do not be surprised if you see Alex Wood or Aaron Nola or Sean Manaea in those lineups. I think they're better off being 100-man league type pivots, 3-man league, 10-man, 20-man league type pivots, those closer to the vest. These guys are kind of like almost chalk, which is another video series that we used to do. Kind of get you just under the radar. That's called the leverage zone, and I'll show you that as we go too. But I would check these two guys in being dominant ownership guys. Will Smith maybe at 13%. Wilson Contreras has been decent lately. I'd check him in as well. And now we come over here to first base. Freddie Freeman, Anthony Rizzo's heated up. Wilmer Flores, even Matt Olson at 15%. We're going to see a lot of Braves on the slate tonight, I have a feeling. Ozzie Albies, Tommy Lastea, Arroyo, Story, maybe not. It's a drop off between that 16, almost 17% down to 12.5. We could probably leave Trevor Story off, although I sure would rather see him up there in the 5 hole as opposed to having to take Arroyo as a punt in the 9 hole. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so I would include Story as well. Hopefully the DS, the optimizer, picks up on him. Austin Riley's been fine lately. Josh Donaldson's been a cash game guy all year. Evan Longoria, I would check those game logs and DJ LeMahieu before you include him with all of these other options. Shortstop, Dansby Swanson, lots of Braves. All the way down to Brandon Crawford, who has been utter crap lately. When I was looking at his game logs 3 or 4 days ago, I doubt much has changed, but you might want to dive in and take a peek just in case it has. Into the outfield, Acuna is usually a cash game lock. Stanton and Judge, again, game log hunt those guys. Make sure they're swinging a decent bat. They might not be. Ian Happ has been pretty chalky lately. Kyle Schwarber, JD Martinez. We don't need to get too much lower than that. Byron Buxton, Cody Bellinger. I've been loving using him this year at 2,900. He's way too cheap for what he can do, what he kind of was doing under the radar. Low key 6 or 7 hole kind of guy, was bringing me 12 to 15 points every night. Don't know if that's still the case, but let's just pretend it is. And let's say our player pool is 27 people. Click the old optimize, and we kick off those 5 lineups, and we see that Bieber is the cash game selection in this batch of lineups. As lineups confirm and as lineups get closer and closer to lock, you may want to check back. Some of these things may change a little bit. We've got a lot of Will Smith, Tommy Lestay, and there's old Christian Arroyo. Love the punt. The DS, the optimizer, loves the punt. But as I cruise through these lineups, I see 2 Braves, 2 Giants, and a smattering of other guys. That's fine. These are building those lineups. I don't like to see more than 3 bats on Fanduel. I don't like to see more than 3 on Draftkings either. But generally not more than 3 bats for a cash type lineup, because again, I don't want to put all eggs in one basket. I want to diversify. I need safety, and I need a high floor lineup in a cash game scenario, or even those smaller leagues. I don't need the risk to get to the upside, to get to the very, very top of the leaderboard. I know you need to get to the top of the leaderboard in a 3-man, 5-man, 10-man league, but it doesn't take much to get there. If you look at a 10-man league, it only pays you $5 on the dollar, number one. Number two, it pays a top 10% lineup. How do I know? 10 people in there, everybody equal chances, considering nobody has an edge over anybody, which isn't the case, but if it was, in a vacuum, you've got a 1 in 10 or 10% chance at winning a league. It doesn't take much to beat 10 people. It just doesn't. They can all trip over themselves. You don't need to go produce some 240-point FanDuel score to beat those guys. You're going to win that on a much, much lower score. In fact, you would win that if you saw the 100,000-person nickel contest, the score that lands at about 10,000th, about the top 10% of that contest, is going to translate to about what it takes to win those 10-man leagues if you took them in volume. Now, if you only take 1 per night, you may get unlucky. You may run into a guy who scores a 240. But you may also post a 180 yourself and win by 40 points. You just don't know what you're going to get. But through volume, over time, you're going to find out that a top 10% lineup is the cutoff. That's what wins a 10-man league. A top 5% lineup wins a 20-man league. My favorite contest, the 100-man league, a top 1% lineup. In other words, top 1,000 people out of a 100,000-person tournament ends up producing the same score that wins. And I would take the 25 times my buy-in over a 100-man league over the 4 times buy-in over a top 1% lineup in that nickel, that big monster 150 mass multi-entry contest. I'm going to get paid better on a 25 times rollover than I am on a 4 times rollover. And I'm going to produce that top 1% lineup way more often than I'm going to produce something that goes even further into the nickel. Now, if you don't like capping your upside, because that's what you're doing, if you don't play the nickel and instead you play the 100-man league, now you've reduced your upside. You've reduced the potential of that lineup getting paid, but you're taking the higher floor. You're taking the safety. You're taking the higher pay at a lower score. I like that method. If you like that method, then you like this method as well, because these lineups produced typically perform very, very well in those cash game type scenarios. And when we're focusing on the ownership side of things over here, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're banking on. Now, if I was going to branch out and look into something else on those smaller slates, I want to see. I know that Atlanta was pretty chalky. I know that some of those other teams were. So if I kick off onto, say, the Express slate or something, I can see Yankees and Twins and Phillies and whatever and Dodgers. And I know that some of these ownerships are still going to translate in. These may just be our ownerships for the main slate, but sometimes they run rather parallel, right? Like sometimes somebody that goes very, very low owned becomes rather chalky because all of those other options fall off to the wayside when we eliminate 9 other games to go to a 3-game slate. But sometimes the chalky guys on the main slate, if they're on those smaller slates, they're still going to be chalky, if not more so. So you could almost just do the exact same thing and uncheck everybody. Go right down the list again, looking at the pitcher. Who's the new pitcher of choice? Well, Aaron Nola. Compared to Chris Archer, and Cueto, whatever, doesn't it make sense that he would be the chalky pitcher? It does to me. Probably going to be a lot higher owned than any 12%, but he's still going to be the leader when it comes to the ownerships. Catchers, Will Smith, yeah, should make sense. Grandal is not going to jump from 2% over Will Smith. He may come up to 14%, but Will Smith may come up from 14% to 22% or something on that smaller slate. First base, Freddie Freeman, Anthony Rizzo, imagine that. Rhys Hoskins maybe becomes playable at that point. We'd have to see. DJ LeMahieu all of a sudden becomes a second baseman more or less of choice. But your guys like Garcia and Lux and maybe even Polanco kind of filter into that mix. But this would just be a core of players that you're looking for, right? Donaldson, LeMahieu, maybe some Justin Turner. Come over here to shortstop. You see Trey Turner, maybe Lurie Garcia, maybe Kiner Falefa, whatever. You come down here to the outfield, and you've got your Yankees again, so it's going to be a very Yankee-heavy slate in terms of some kind of cash game, head-to-heads, three-man leagues, something like that. Kyle Schwarber, Byron Buxton probably becomes playable. Cody Bellinger definitely. Bryce Harper and Mookie Betts probably sneak into the mix as well. So when I go back to the All tab and I take a peek at them, I've got 16 players in a player pool. I could probably build a cash game lineup with that. Now, I probably cannot afford 3 bats from the same team at this point, but I can stay within those ownerships and use those consensus rankings, those consensus projections to tell me that this is still on the right track for that smaller slate. We could do the exact same thing for the late night slate or the after hours slate if we wanted to go right through it. But instead, let's jump over to DraftKings really quickly and let's compile the lineup there for tonight's main slate as well. Same amount of games. Let's see what didn't change. If we set things up for the same couple of unique players, same 5 lineups, and sort by projected ownership, uncheck everybody, and here we go for DraftKings. Manaya, interesting, he pops to the top. Look, these guys are still pretty spread out though. Bieber, Eovaldi, Nola, maybe Ian Anderson, and then a big drop off down to 11%. Catcher, Wilson Contreras, way up there. Will Smith probably needs to be included. Those are probably your only 2 cash game catchers of choice. Now there's a lot of even spread here at first base, but it looks like it drops off super quick down to 6%, and Rhys Hoskins, Anthony Rizzo, probably a price thing when it comes to those pitchers over on DraftKings. That's where you get the difference between Fanduel and DraftKings. Fanduel oftentimes has softer pricing, therefore a little bit lower hanging fruit. Come down here to Trevor Story, cook those guys. Patrick Wisdom pops into the mix. Jose Ramirez, good cash game play. Usually Austin Riley, maybe some Justin Turner, and then a drop off. Looking at shortstop, Trey Turner, Nico Horner, Brandon Crawford again. I would check that game log. Dansby Swanson, probably fine. Bogarts needs to get a little hotter before we start considering him above and beyond all of those guys. Happ, Acuna, Schwarber in the outfield, Bryce Harper, Rafael Ortega. Bryce Harper must be a little lower priced compared to what's out there on FanDuel because he did not appear in the FanDuel player pool to make a quick rhyme. But now all the way down to Morel, which is fine. We'll go ahead and make that small adjustment where we knock off about 1/100th of a point of the projections just to fool the DraftKings rules. We go looking through here. Now there's 4 Cubs. I might limit it to 3. I might say Patrick Wisdom. Let's take him out. Let's drop in Justin Turner. And we've got what? We'd have 3 Cubs and 3 Dodgers. That would work just fine. Or we could take this lineup that already has 3 Cubs, 2 Dodgers, and a smattering of the others, 2 Braves. No problem. 2 Tampa Bay Rays in the same lineup is interesting considering that they didn't appear anywhere up in here. But 3 Phillies. So you can see there is some spread and there is some variation in these lineups. But as long as you're using somebody from these 31 players in this pool, you are on the right track and you are building a pretty strong lineup. So again, a lot of information to cover every single day, talk a little bit different twists on the exact same concepts. But if this is something you want some help with, you can find me inside dfsarmy.com using the coupon code DFSArmy. And why not talk about it? Everybody else is getting better if you're just standing still, so you might as well get better with everybody else, and I can help you do that. So come and talk to me. We'll see you on the inside.